I'm a huge fan of science-based advice when it comes to fitness especially. So in this video, I'm going to summarize lessons that I've learned watching Dr. Mike, Jeff Nippard, Dr. Huberman, Matthew Walker, and so on, but also through books and explain the application and the influence that it had on me and on my fitness. So the first idea is that when it comes to training, there's no one answer, meaning that most people are really focused on finding what works in the general population and believing in miracle solutions. This applies to training first because it came from Dr. Mike Israel, but it can be generalized to your life, the lifestyle in life too. And so that's why this concept is really important. And so I realized through listening to science-based advice that there's no right exercise, meaning that there's no one exercise above all the other exercises that is able to get you the most gains, that is able to push you to failure better. And it all depends on your body, how you perform the exercise, how you use the exercise, what outcome you're trying to get out of it. What truly matters is, one, the quality of your technique, two, the intensity of the stimulus, and three, how the exercise fits you. Again, I'm referring to the gym in general, but it can apply to life more broadly. So I used to force myself to do barbell squats and bench with the barbell, but it hurt a lot. My shoulder, my back, everyone was doing it. And so I was thinking that the problem is me because there's one answer, and it's to do barbell squat if I want my legs to grow. Whereas the reality is just that my legs grew using hack squats. This is to tell you that the goal is to push your muscles to failure, and the exercise is less important than your execution, your technique, and the way you perform the exercise. Because the goal is for your muscles to have to adapt, to push them to evolve, because the stimulus that you're putting onto them is so strong that they have to be ready for the next time it happens. Not one exercise will do this for you. This is why exercise selection is very important, especially when you're getting more advanced, has its limit, because it's not only about the exercise. It's more about how you use them and how you respond to them. And so for too long, I was chasing the perfect solution, chasing the perfect exercise, not focusing on to what I was doing so much, but really kind of like seeking for whatever could get me out of this plateau and onto the next level. Now, if you generalize it more broadly, this is something that happens in life. We're always searching for the next thing, this thing that it's going to get us out of the situation that we're in right now, that's going to magically bump us onto the next level and push us to our best. Whereas most of the time, you don't need something else. You need the same stuff that you're working on, but you just need to focus on it and do it better, slightly better next time. The second thing is more from Jeff Nippard, but also from Dr. Mike, and it's that weight is just another variable. When you're training, going heavier is not always the answer. And if you're training at the gym, what you want before going heavier is control. Control is the most important thing, probably, before the weight. Is when it comes to hypertrophy, at least, when it comes to building muscle, you want to be able to use stability in order to make your muscle grow. There's less risk of injury if you do that. And there's also a potential for a stronger stimulus as you're so in control of your movement that you can apply the tension wherever you want it, or more use the technique and use the tension that you feel onto one muscle more. And I talk about this with my clients a lot because I have some clients that come in for rehabilitation or that seem to have joint problem. And so they come to me with back pain. But when I really kind of like go through an analysis of what's going on and how they move, I realize that the problem is more how they load the exercise. Because most people will, because of more psychological reason actually than physical reason, will try to load their exercises way more than what they should or what they need in order for their muscles to grow. And it's really important that you understand the difference between training hard enough and training like a dumb person. And when I mean dumb, I don't mean like an idiot, like you don't understand what you're doing. I mean your judgment and your vision and what you're doing is being so clouded by the ego that's in the way of your goals that you can't even understand what's wrong with your lift. Where it's obvious if you film yourself that the plates don't match your technique and your skills right now. Now, again, we're going to go back into the psychological aspect at the end of it now. I really want to touch on the training part for those that are really interested in fitness. Well, you're going to be interested in the psychological part too if you're interested in fitness, but you know what I mean. There's a wave of lifters right now. They're talking about emphasizing the stretch of a muscle and putting more attention onto the stretched position of the muscle for good reasons, because that could potentially lead for more growth when it comes to when you're interested in hypertrophy. Jeff Nippard did a whole study on it, and he talks about it a lot. Dr. Mike too. The last thing that you want is to load an exercise to the point that you can control the weight in the most stretched position, because that's where the greatest risk of injury is, because the muscle is so weak in this position, which is also why it's easier to make it grow. So you can see like kind of the paradox here, that like there's a thin distance in between it being optimal and it being too much. And if you're across that line, then you're probably going to go into the injury zone or overtraining or whatever it is for you. And yes, coming back to the point about the psychological aspect of it, it takes humility to be okay with the fact that you won't bench the most weight. You have to put your ego aside when it comes to training, especially when it comes to hypertrophy, because you will not use heavy weights when it's not necessary, as it's just counterproductive because you're wasting all this energy. Whereas you could pick and do an exercise that demands less of you in terms of energy, but with the same results potentially. And so what I see a lot at the gym, and what I see a lot in beginners that are starting going to the gym, is that they're really scared of people judging them for them, or them exposing themselves to look weak. And the problem with that is you're going to skip steps. You're going to not focus on the control and your technique. And that's not a good idea. And you don't want that to happen. So it takes a little bit of time in the beginning of your journey to accept the fact that you're a beginner, to accept the fact that you're probably going to pick dumbbells that are not that heavy. And this is going to feel like a hit for you, to your ego, to what you thought about yourself and everything else. And that's what you need, because through going to that phase, you're going to be able to understand a lot about yourself and how you react to feeling and exposing yourself to look weak is very important. So go through that phase. Do not feel shame about it. Now, third point is not about training specifically. It's about lifestyle in general, and it's about stress. I realized something going through Huberman's podcasts, something that's really necessary and really important when it comes to your life in general, and especially training. It's that stress is really a problem, and people are not at all paying attention to it because they're underestimating greatly the impact that it has on their lives. Now, stress is a problem because it is undifferentiated, meaning that any stressor you might add to your life will put pressure on your system, and your system will not be able to see if it's a right or wrong stressor. It's still a stressor at the end of the day. So what is a stressor? A stressor is anything that elevates your system and mobilizes your nervous system, to be more specific. So everything that triggers a chain of reaction of the sympathetic system, which would look like elevated heart rate, elevated blood pressure, vision more narrow, feeling like your mind is being foggy, you can't make decisions. All this kind of stuff is mobilizing your system for you to act or to take a decision or to flee or whatever it is. No, there are certain degrees. People think that they're stressed when they're in a car accident and they have to call 911 and someone's dead. It doesn't work like that. There are certain degrees of being stressed, and you can wake up in the morning and feel stressed, feel tension in your body. So in my case, I realized that the amount of stress I was under was preventing me from reaching my goals when it comes to my fitness and when it comes to my life in general. The most important thing they have to understand is that you have to highlight the stressors in your life, because stressors are not only your boss at work, but also your commutes, your relationships, your dog at home that's not out because you can't be at the right time coming home. It can be anything that's putting tension and pressure onto your system. And remember, it's undifferentiated. So if you stack a bunch of stressors on top of what you have and you're really stressed out, then you're just not going to be able to recover, because stress, through some hormone imbalance, because it elevates the cortisol levels in your blood and brain, is not going to be able to recover. Your system will not recover. You will not put on muscle. You'll not recover from your run. You will not be able to sleep well. You will not X, Y, and Z, because there's a whole lot of bunch of other systems that are affected by it. And you have to know something is that people around you are not managing their stress. And this is part of a reason why some people become aggressive, some people become depressive, some people will use self-medication to try and ease the stress that they're going through. And I'm not saying that this is the only reason why it leads to those outcomes. I'm just saying it's always a part of the equation. So when I'm doing analysis with my clients, when it comes to their lifestyle, I always seem to dig out some stressors that are heavy stressors that's going on right now. So maybe it's their kids, maybe it's the situation at home, maybe it's this thing that's coming up, maybe it's their presentation at work, maybe it's the workload that they have. And there's always stressors. Now, life is stressful and it's part of it, but you have to be able to understand how your stress works and understand how to manage it, because if you don't, then it's going to get in the way of everything. And the last point that we're going to talk about is more about food. Well, it is about food, actually. And it's that food can be a remedy in itself. Dr. Mike, not Israel Tell, Dr. Mike, I don't remember his name, but Dr. Mike, the doctor, talks a lot about this. And I found recently a podcast which led me to film this video and think about this subject. But it is a touchy subject when it comes to food, especially in the United States. So I'm in Canada right now, but still. Most people are aware of, I would say, the negative impact that food can have, that bad food can have on your health. But I don't think people understand the depth of the damages it can do to your system. Food that is hyper processed, food that is hyper palatable and potentially addictive, very dense in calories, doesn't only make you gain weight. It also can destroy your microbiome and probably even affect your immune system. You have to consider yourself like a machine. And the food that you're putting in your system is literally fuel. Now, if you put shitty fuel in a car for 20 years, it's going to break down way quicker. And you're going to have problems when it comes to the engines. You're going to have to have more regular checkups with the garage and everything else. Because food is foundational. And if you don't put the right food in your body on a regular basis, your body is going to be unable to function. It's going to adapt, yes. So you're not going to feel like you have those big negative impacts right away. Because if you would, then first, no one would eat those foods in the first place. And second, we wouldn't have this conversation. It's more insidious than that, because you can't see the damage until it's too late-ish. And I think the fact that most people are affected by cancer in their lives, so many people are affected by diabetes and other kinds of illnesses, is in great part influenced by the food that you're eating during your lifetime. It's not just the food that you're eating right now, it's the food that you were eating before. And yes, the body works as a machine and all the systems are intertwined. Meaning that if something is not working, like your microbiome. So microbiome is the living system of bacteria that's in your gut. That's keeping you healthy, and that's really important for it to function well. Otherwise, you're not going to digest well. You're not going to be able to use the nutrients that are in the food that you're eating. You're not going to be able to a whole bunch of other stuff. And if you put literally poison for it in your system and you kill this microbiome, you don't cultivate a microbiome that's healthy enough, and that goes for your whole digestive system, then your body is going to compensate for the lack of resources, but it's going to have to draw it from other systems. And the problem is that if you don't fuel your body properly, systems are not going to be able to work. And that's why you can start being affected by illnesses. And it seems to be the case in America that people have reduced food to marketing and mass consumption, and that they're not considering food for what it is. And I see that in Canada too. People tend to consider food as an object more than what it was, which is most of the time a living source, an animal, a vegetable, something that grew up in nature. Because it's not something that looks like a life source anymore. It's just something that looks like a box that you're picking up in the supermarket. And there's this objectification of the food that we're eating, which is, I think, due to the marketing companies and the grocery companies. How it looks doesn't look like it's coming from nature and something that's you have to take care of. It just looks like a liability. something that you have to take, something you have to consume, a product. And I don't think that it's surprising that you see these big rises in illnesses and diseases, because I think it's highly correlated to a whole bunch of behaviors that we're having right now in modern society. And that food is probably one of the biggest one, because the food that we're consuming, we're not considering as food anymore. We're just considering it as objects. So anyway, I hope this video is going to help you. Your opinion would be great. And in the meantime, just trust the process.